good evening and welcome back. Today marks the 30th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre, or as the Chinese know it, the June 4th incident, also known as the 35th of May, as that is a way to get around it. And here we have Twitter doing Chinese bidding. So, from The Guardian, Twitter issued apology for blocking accounts critical of China. Twitter has apologised for suspending accounts critical of Chinese government policy days ahead of the 30th anniversary of the bloody crackdown on protesters at Beijing's Tiananmen Square after an outcry among users. Twitter said a number of accounts have been suspended as part of efforts to target accounts engaging in platform manipulation. Some of these were involved in commentary about China. These accounts were not mass reported by the Chinese authorities. This was a routine action on our part, the company said. Yes, funny that, considering how much Chinese involvement they have. And yes, Twitter is blocked in China, but there are many Chinese people who wish to get around it and therefore use a VPN. VPNs, of course, not allowed in China, and there is a larger crackdown on them in the West as well. I know that the European Union abhors them and is trying to stop their proliferation as well, as we can see in any authoritarian regime. Brexit. Such actions sometimes catch false positives, or we make errors at it. Twitter said it was working to ensure we overturn any errors. Marco Rubio commented on it, saying Twitter has apparently suspended a large number of accounts that are critical of China, including accounts of people outside of China. Twitter has become a Chinese government censor, as is to be expected, and it does end with saying tools to detect and block content related to the 1989 crackdown have reached unprecedented levels of accuracy. So, funny that, if it is so accurate, then you wouldn't think that they would make these mistakes or have false positives or making errors as they suggest. So the Tiananmen Square protest started in 1981. Essentially, that was where its roots come from. And to say, hey, now that Mao is dead, 76, and the Great Leap Forward was more like Great Leap Backward, considering 100 million people have died, and that communism and this authoritarian regime isn't doing good for the people as promised, and there was just corruption, nepotism, and favoritism, which is putting people in places of power and gaining wealth. And this whole wealth distribution thing of everybody is equal isn't happening, and we should have more transparency, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, all that good stuff, and allow more ideas to be discussed and debated, and stop such an authoritarian regime from continuing, as pioneered by Hu Yaobang. I believe that's how it's pronounced. It does look like Hu Yubang, but anyway. Yes, and then he died in April of 1989. The protesters continued, saying that we want transparency, freedom of speech, and permittance to be our own people, pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, essentially, to power the American way of life. And eventually China, under Deng Xiaoping, said, oh no, this isn't good. People are about to realise how corrupt we are. Let's stop them. So they tried to get the local Chinese army in to stop them, and they said, hey no, we kind of agree with them, we like them, and you can see that they're not really causing a problem, considering that they are bringing their children now, and there are over 1 million people in Tiananmen Square even when it was closed to the public, and that was around their equivalent of Statue of Liberty, essentially, which is hoping to be built in the next 5 years in Los Angeles. But they were all peaceful protests. But Deng Xiaoping put, oh no, we can't have this. And of course he didn't like Falun Gong either, which is very, very peaceful, but he was just worried it had more members than the Chinese Communist Party. And that's just essentially yoga. And Falun Gong used to be popular as well until they were prosecuted because he was too worried they were going to overthrow the government. They're very paranoid. Stalin's a good example of this, of course. And so, on the 4th of June, the army did roll in. The estimated deaths are between a few hundred to 2,600, but later estimates have said, well, maybe up to 10,000. We don't know, because it's all been suppressed and bodies have been burned, so we can't know how many people there were. And the families of those people can't speak out, because otherwise they will also be prosecuted. Like, being a human rights lawyer is basically the most dangerous job in China. And the reasoning given for this was, oh, well, the student protesters are armed and violent and attacking our poor soldiers who are just trying to be peaceful. Therefore, we must fight back as self-defense and stop these aggressive protesters. And that was how it was sold to the public, and then taught at universities, through the media, television, all that good stuff. Until now, it is the Great Forgettance, and they try to stop any mention of it, as we can see with Twitter here. So, never forget, lest we forget. And similar to that, of course, in 2 days' time is D-Day, or at least the 75th anniversary of D-Day, which is why Trump is in London, to commemorate that as well. And I will be making a video on that in a couple of days. So, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, listening. Do like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. Share this video around if you want to see the channel grow, and I will see you next time.